Hi, welcome to another Expert Insights discussion. Today we're joined by three guests, Kris Glabinski of Aggregate Intelligence, Nicola Rolla of Libra, and Marco Kleiner of Atomize. For transparency, Aggregate Intelligence, Libra, and Atomize are all expert partners with Revenue Hub. This is a wide-ranging discussion centered around the importance of time, adaptability, and the ability to respond quickly to market changes in pricing strategies for hotels, emphasizing the problems faced by smaller independent properties in managing pricing strategies manually and how automated pricing systems can bring some solutions. Kris, Marco, and Nick also look at the evolving nature of the hotel industry, some of the challenges faced by traditional revenue managers, and the potential impact of new entrants and the changing guest expectation. We touch on the potential benefits of adopting automated pricing systems for revenue management, occupancy optimization, and for reducing manual efforts, especially in those smaller properties where dedicated resources are limited. Really hope you enjoy the conversation. Hi guys, thanks for joining us today and this discussion that we're going to be having about automated pricing. And I'm going to come to each of you to get an intro first, and then after that Kris will kind of set the scene a little bit because it was a video that you and I did previously that sort of flagged this up as a discussion point. So let's go round and get an intro from each of you first. So Kris, if I can come to you first, that would be great.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Hello, Trevor, Nick, Marco, and all the listeners. My name is Kris Glabinski. I am from Aggregate Intelligence, a company that is providing technology companies, hotel and travel industry with business intelligence data like pricing, like scheduling, like reputation, events, and whatnot. And we're here to discuss a very interesting topic, I think. Very futuristic topic, automated pricing, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, should be good. And Marco, over to you, please.
Yeah, let me welcome everyone. My name is Marco Kleiner. I'm the VP Global Sales at Atomize. Atomize is a lean revenue management software designed for hoteliers who want to do more with less. And we operate globally with properties in 50 countries on 5 continents. It's based on the latest innovation in price optimization. Atomize transforms market data into revenue by delivering optimal prices in real time and up to 2 years into the future. I'm now almost 4 years with Atomize, and before that I held various positions in revenue management for 25 years in larger organizations, but also in smaller independent properties in Europe and in the Middle East.
Super, thank you. And Nick, last but by no means least, over to you. Could you give us an intro, please?
Well, thanks guys for having me today. It's very nice to share knowledge with colleagues in the market. So thanks for that. My name is Nicola Rolla, but everyone's called me Nick, and I'm currently cover the position of CCO at LibraTech. So LibraTech is a company that developed a new generation revenue management system for hotels that works with advanced algorithm of machine learning, and its approach is more demand-centric. And so here with my colleagues, we're going to talk today about some of the feature that perhaps our system can help for the hotels to increase, with the ultimate reason of improving the revenue and automation of operation.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Super. Well, thanks all three of you for being here. And as I mentioned just in that brief intro, one of the things, Kris, if I can get you just to jump in here at a minute, we did a video looking at sort of competitor intelligence and how the utilization of that could help hotels to drive additional revenue with small incremental price increases, almost imperceivable slight changes, but you illustrated in that video the impact, and through that we were just discussing, and you said, automated pricing would be like a key element that could work with this, and that's what triggered a thought of, well, let's get some people together and have a discussion. So Can you just kind of connect those dots a little bit and set the scene for what we're going to be discussing today?
Sure. So as you mentioned, Trevor, our discussion was about how different types of properties, the small ones and the bigger ones, would manage their pricing, what is their decision-making process, how long does it take to make the decisions. And we came to a conclusion that obviously we were talking from our perspective about monitoring, the necessity of monitoring the prices and how often these prices are changing and why they are not changing so frequently. So we started to have a conversation where we realized, where we've discussed the fact that small, not noticeable price changes, but very frequent, are much more beneficial to the overall revenue benefit than a big price increases that happen every couple of weeks. The big price increases have a lot of risk involved in them. They may either work or not. It is not clear how competitors will react to those, how customers will react to those, whilst the small, not noticeable price changes will be key to making impact on the revenue and optimizing the pricing, yet at the same time without customer not being able to notice them, and especially competitors not being noticeable for competitors. And then we've started to conclude then, if this is the case, and if this really works towards the revenue, why don't people do it? And why they don't just do it automatically? And then we realized, but hey, there are companies, revenue management systems, that actually do have functionality of automated pricing. So this is where we decided that it would be a good idea to bring the two leaders in the industry for automated pricing into a conversation and ask them, how is that working for them? What kind of customers do they have? What kind of customers go for automated pricing, and what kind of don't? So that's the background to this today.
And here we all are. Perfect.
And here we all are, exactly.
So I guess what is maybe the most obvious thing? What is automatic pricing? I mean, I guess in a way, should everybody know what automatic pricing is? I guess that takes us down a conversation as, does everyone have an RMS, which we won't go down because we know the answer. But let me just throw it over to you three first, as to, and maybe start with Marco, then Nick, and then also Kris. I know your background also comes in from an RMS perspective. So just very briefly, heads up, what between the three of you, what is automatic pricing? Marco, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, of course. I mean, as you can imagine, I'm getting approached by a lot of people on a daily basis, and also asking about what does revenue management mean to me, autopilot, automation, all that. Whereby I see there is a lot of mistrust, a lot of education needed as well, because even people do not really know what does that really mean. I mean, they fear like this is like Terminator, and you give the control to a machine and you're not gain control back, and you cannot interfere or so, which is absolutely not the case. Yeah. Again, for Atomize, we have, let's say, properties ranging from, I guess the smallest one is even 8 rooms. Yeah, I mean, people asking me, does it make sense to a revenue management system and using autopilot automation in general? Where I say it's absolutely important, especially for smaller properties where you do not have a revenue manager, maybe not even the luxury of having a reservations manager. Sometimes it's just a GM sitting there. And of course, that person has often more important things to do than concentrating on pricing. And not even talking about being analytical or strategical also. So there's no time to really analyze future potential in general. Whereby time is really a factor. I mean, a modern revenue management system is able to give you more than 40 or 50 hours back on a monthly basis.
And Nick, your take on it?
Yes, I mean, talking about, the question of what is, in our opinion, automatic pricing, and also coming to what Kris was saying, that small changes, can make a difference. One of the problems that lots of hotels have, that, to be able to do lots of changes during the day requires time, requires technology. So obviously, if there is technology nowadays that helps to automate those operations in order to increase more revenue, that's where I think automatic pricing is coming into play. So if technology allows it, obviously, as Marco also said, this type of functionality could be helpful for any type of hotel, so smaller hotels, but even like bigger hotels. There are some constraints that maybe we can talk a little bit more later, but overall, I think that's the essence of what automatic pricing is.
That makes sense. And Kris, your take?
All right, so just maybe very, very briefly for anyone who would not be familiar too much with that and with pricing subjects. So first, so the evolution of pricing was first we would use cost-based pricing. We would look at the cost, put some margin on, and that's how we would figure out the price. Then in the hotel pricing evolution, we would go through something that I would call guest pricing. So we would kind of anticipate something in the future, something that's going on within our hotel, and try to set that price over something more smart than just the cost analysis. Then we had the grid pricing, which was the whole table of preset prices that hotels would use in different occasions for different days, for different segments. Then we went into an open pricing, which was like unlimited and unrestricted ability to set the price at any point of time for any point of for any day. And now we're talking automated pricing. So basically taking that open pricing ability to set the price at any point of time very regularly, but automatically. So allow the system to actually look at competitor pricing, look at your booking pickups, look at all the sorts of information as the systems are collecting, and make the change for the price automatically for the hotel. That's what I see as automated pricing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Where does automatic pricing fit in? So if we focus on smaller groups or independent properties, what is the value not of having an RMS, because we're assuming they've already made that step? What is the value of actually looking at adopting or dipping your toe into automatic pricing? Who wants to pick that one up? Nick, do you want to take that one up first?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, first of all, as probably I mentioned before, automatic pricing can be viable for smaller independent hotels. Although I think there are certain factors to consider. Implementing automatic pricing system can bring several benefits, such as, for example, improving revenue management, optimizing occupancy rates, and reducing also manual effort, because especially in small properties, what happens is there's no probably like a figure like a revenue manager. So sometimes even the receptionist or a front desk or another person, the director of sales, is in charge also of the pricing strategies. And so obviously, if these other people are also doing other tasks within the organization, it's difficult for them to fully concentrate on the job of the revenue management. So obviously, as a system like Libra or like advanced RMS that also offer this functionality of automating the price based on certain rules that the use can set, that's obviously an advantage, because then it will optimize also the resources of the hotel. Mm-hmm. And what I think also there are a few points to consider, obviously, in adopting this, because obviously, when we're talking about small properties, we need to consider, I think, various factors such as, cost, evaluate the cost of implementing an automated pricing system. Some system may require some investment, obviously, an ongoing subscription fee or percentage of generated revenue. So it's important for them to determine if the potential benefit outweigh the cost for your hotel size and operations, right? Then the complexity as well. The automatic pricing system often utilize sophisticated algorithms that consider various factors, like market demand, historical data, competitor rates, and other relevant variables.
That makes sense. And Marco, I mean, Nick's obviously mentioned a lot of factors in there. So, I mean, whether or not there's some additional ones or some expansion on those points, what's your take on the value to adopting and whether independent properties, small groups, where the value is to them?
Absolutely agreeing in what was said already by Nick. It's all about the time and the person who's able to dedicate that time to optimize, let's say, the next 12 months, maybe the next 2 years. I mean, before we break this down into the technicalities behind it, it is just a question of how often is that person responsible for it able to check about the future months, monitor it. How often can they make the change? And then, of course, it's like you cannot make thousands of calculations per millisecond, including all these internal, external data. It is purely not possible. And how often do they check that in reality? Eventually, once a week, maybe twice a week, without having any system, for the upcoming 4 or 6 weeks. Luckily, if they could do it for the next 3 months. But the reality is different. Yeah, so that I would say that's the biggest plus point and the biggest advantage for introducing that.
Yeah, a lot of it seems to be coming down to time where obviously resources has a part. Kris, what's your kind of looking at this from different perspectives? Yeah.
So I think Marco had a very good point here, because, asking a question, how many times do they check the data? Once per week, twice per week? I think this is a key into trying to understand why automated pricing is not a commodity within the hotel industry. Mm-hmm. And it's because people don't see what they don't see. So they don't know what they don't see, right? So if you don't know that your competition is making price changes, if they don't know that the competition is fighting your promotions or reacting to whatever your hotel is doing, then you don't see it. And if you don't see it, you don't perceive it as a problem. And therefore, there's no way you can, adapt an automatic system on something that is not a problem. Could that be a situation that you guys are facing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. That's completely a situation that we encounter most of the time.
So it is first, I guess, for a hotelier to understand what exactly is happening on the market behind what they can see in the daily or weekly reports, right? It'll be funny if that fully automated process will just fix a price at one certain level for the whole month, and that's it.
Exactly.
It'll turn around.
And in question of seconds, because nowadays, we're still, because of some constraints, still we see people, even with the advanced hoteliers, that maybe update the price once a day, maybe twice a day. But can you imagine if the system can react to all these tiny details and update the price if it's this certain changes happening in the market, in unforeseen events or anything like that, that into the consideration, and then quickly react to that in question of second? That would be amazing, right?
And especially,
Marco, go on.
Especially in regards of just what Nick just said, is like even these 3 updates a day is eventually for a lot of customers this is not enough, because the market is so dynamic and unstable. They can purely not wait. Let's say after 9 o'clock in the morning, you get the most updated price recommendation. They purely do not have the time to wait another 8 hours to get another recommendation, because let's say for some customers of ours in Greece, for example, where the market is very dynamic, especially now, a room category or the complete hotel can be sold very quickly within just 1 hour. And it says, well, for me, I need a system that is immediately overlooking and observing the market, which means then real-time optimization. That means whenever there is a booking received by the PMS, the RMS picks it up, is checking whether that has any kind of influence on the same day, on the day, shoulder nights, week before, week after, stuff like that. And this is purely not possible by a human being to react on each reservation and to calculate.
If I go back to this concept of people don't see things that they don't see, right? So they're living well and they don't even realize what's going on. Now, you, Marco, have also mentioned that it's all real time. It's all so dynamic. Things are changing almost every second. So if you don't see that these changes, then you're not even aware of them. But the reality is it's very, very dynamic. And I agree with that, because I was dealing with people who thought that their market was just boring and lazy. Mm-hmm. But when they looked at the prices, it apparently appeared to be a very dynamic market. So once they see things, then they start to realize. And Nick has mentioned that I think hotels who want to start to see, they start to look at prices, they start to look at different symptoms from the market, and they start to use Excel in order to see more. But it gets very, very complicated because the more they see, the more dynamic it gets. So eventually, the bridge should be technology. So should it not be that, automated systems first, they are being implemented because they see everything, they make price changes for you, and then you can teach hoteliers as you go along?
I believe, generally speaking, there are people that are more curious and more open-minded, to see what's out there. But there are lots of people that, they're more accustomed to tradition, or to what they think it's more traditional way to do it, because they're being taught and they've been doing this for years. So it's difficult for them to do some changes. As I said, it's not as easy. It comes through time. Also, the adoption of revenue management system now is getting better and better, but still I think, I'm not sure about the statistic now, but I think 5% of all the hotels in the world are using some sort of revenue management system solution. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement in terms of educating the market and also adoption of the market.
I think it will come there. How many did you say?
I think 5% or something like it worldwide or something like that. People are using maybe I'm wrong, but I think I've heard some sort of percentage like that. So can you imagine how many hotels are there in the world? They can use this type of technology to improve their operation revenue management system, but still they don't.
I just want to pick. So whether that number's right or wrong, 5%. Of all the hotels are using an RMS system, yeah? So let's say it was even 20%. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I want to just change this question slightly, because one of the reasons, it always baffles me what is the challenge to embracing this technology or to going down this route. And I can understand slightly the bit about the automation piece. A bit like suddenly if everyone says, right, we're going to have automated cars, and we all get a little bit nervous because, to me, that's the easiest thing for me to equate to. Am I really going to take my hand off the wheel and sit in the passenger seat and let something else drive it? That feels like a big risk to me. But is it? But for something like an RMS, for me, it's often this. Is it a price thing? Is it a knowledge thing? I mean, surely it can't be a knowledge thing. There's enough discussion that goes out there that explains the reasons why we need to do it. Kris, is it to your point that if we don't know and we're not looking for information and we're not bothered, we're happy, things are going well, I've got good occupancy, I've got good rates, why do I need to bother with that? I mean, and I'm going to ask you this question, Marco. If revenue management solutions were free and it didn't cost anybody anything, would everybody take up an RMS? An RMS? In fact, I'm going to ask all three of you. I'll come to you. I'll come to you first, Mark.
At least that number of 5% would increase immediately, enormously. But yeah, I mean, you're right. It is, of course, it's like some still see it as a cost, whereby you need to see it as an investment. Of course, mm-hmm. I mean, sometimes even. Some organizations are not willing to pay more than $50 a month. So they say, yeah, but you're expecting, like a Ferrari or the technology of a Ferrari, but not even be willing to pay the price of a Volkswagen Beetle. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so of course that's not possible. So let's say you have a hotel with 100 rooms and you have 65% occupancy and your ADR is about 150 pounds or so, and you make some, let's say, 1-2 millions a year in revenue, in rooms revenue. And a modern revenue management system, especially when you've never worked with one before, can give you another, let's say, 15 to 20% increase in revenue in the first 6 to 12 months. That already represents 500,000, 600,000 pounds. So this is an investment. Let's say it costs you between 8 and 10K a year. So that is an investment already of 1 to 30.
It's like sometimes I almost wonder, is the cost a hurdle, but is it a genuine objection, or is there something else? And maybe to Nick's point earlier about people are comfortable doing the things that they've always done. Why do I need to change my rates dynamically. You know, I've got a good occupancy, I have a good ADR, I'm making decent profit, I enjoy running my hotel. You know, there will be a percentage of people where that life being a hotelier is perfectly okay, isn't it? And you know, as in anything in life.
I think one of the reason, in my opinion, as well, it lots of people perception, they see revenue management system as a very complicated system, something that only maybe a chain or like expert revenue manager can use, and so that's, you know, it's a little bit of a drawback, because obviously, you know, revenue management systems, we all know, started with the airlines, and then the adoption in the hospitality industry was more like within big groups or chains, because at that time probably there were not so many players in the market, and obviously the cost of investment was much higher, so only a certain type of hotels could afford that type of system.
We also provide data to the airlines, and we're working with 25 different airline customers. All of them have revenue management system. So revenue management started in the 60s in the airlines, 70s in the hotels. 45 years later, I don't know an airline that would not have a revenue management system in place. And I do 70% of hotels not having revenue management system. And I think the reason for that is it may be technology, it may be comfort zones, it may be all that. But I think the big difference is in one example that I often use. A few years ago, one of the American airlines spent 10 months analyzing if they should exclude one olive oil from the tray in order to save $300,000 per year, because that would increase their margin by a little bit. So if you have a company, maybe they're multi-billion-dollar companies, but if you have your margin is at almost 1%, you want to do everything to keep that margin. And then in the hotel industry, you know, you remember the olive oil? Hotel industry introduced food waste as a measurement, right? So that's how the different comfort zone around profitability and margins are. And for as long as the margins are good and comfortable, why change something that already works okay, right? Why to have revenue management system if, you know, I have a person in place? So, but then that pressure of trying to change, I wanted to ask you guys, Nick and Marco, did you notice that after pandemic, which obviously shook a lot of margins around in the hotel industry, did you notice a faster increase in revenue management implementation and automation than it was before the pandemics?
If I would may, I mean, I think it's like 50-50. What I could definitely see, and also what I hear from our people, is like education became even more important. During and especially after the pandemic, you see a lot of revenue managers moved out of their positions, moved somewhere, and people from, let's say, the second row moved into these positions, have been brought up by the management into these positions, but not having a proper knowledge about what does it mean? What is the system able to do for you? As you just said, it looks fine, yeah, but a system could point you into the direction, say, see what else is lying on the streets for you just by making use of such a technology. Of course, what I also get aware of sometimes is when you speak to a very well-known revenue manager who's in the market for many, many years, and of course they come and created their own revenue management system, Excel-based, rule-based, and spend hours, weeks, months on creating their own tool for the last 20 years. And of course, they're a bit feared that they feel that someone is attacking them, making them redundant in their position. So it is important to show them what does it mean by introducing that system to you. So how can it help you? It's not like making you redundant and getting you fired. That's not the point. But how much time do you spend on manually gathering all the information, put it in an Excel sheet, and how, you know, I mean, once you're done, it's already outdated. So what are really the benefits? So discussing this, introducing them, making them aware of what does it mean, the different function, that has enormously increased.
In my experience during the pandemic, for sure, I had lots of calls regarding, you know, about our system, our revenue management system, especially because I think what happened during the pandemic, and probably it's still happening now until the market stabilized, but now it's getting better. I think what happened is during the pandemic that the hotel lost one of their KPI to be able to understand the demand. So basically the historical data. So the historical data was not valuable anymore because obviously COVID, the 2020 was a year where were no reservation. So they could not rely in terms of forecast regarding historical data. So they were like, oh, what am I going to do now? So what kind of KPI should I look at to be able to forecast that demand that I used to forecast by using the historical data? So all of a sudden, they were starting to inquire about, okay, what indicators can help me to forecast that demand? And then obviously the new generation RMS providers, they can look into, for example, travel intention, hotel searches, flight searches, which, helps to try to forecast that demand, that usually was used by hotel, the historical data. So that for that reason, I think lots of hotels start to inquire about RMS system that was feeding like forward-looking data.
Is that what you were alluding to, Kris? Why do you think that the pandemic would have had a dramatic effect, or potentially would have increased the?
Because I would have thought, obviously, what Nick is saying is true. If you are seeing something and then you lose the sight of it, then you try to fix it, right? Mm-hmm. But if you didn't see before, you don't see it now. But what I tried to say is that when the hotel businesses were at stake, where you don't have revenue, you have running costs, you have fixed costs, etc., your profit margin drops down. And therefore, it becomes more crucial and important for a hotel owner or a hotel general manager to make sure that they stay above the water. And so the ability, I was alluding that maybe the need for a revenue management system, which, by the way, we've discussed this, but by the way, is the biggest return on investment that a hotel can have. You may invest in beds, palms, spas, swimming pools, and whatnot. Revenue management system brings in the biggest return on investment. And if you want, I can find a book where I've read that as a as a source. But that's true. So only if you're down with your profit margins to a less comfortable level, you start to look at revenue management and revenue management systems and hotel pricing information in order to start seeing what you were missing before. And that's what I was alluding. So, okay. Education, lack of data is one thing, but if I asked you about completely new customers that came in, that starts to come in, I was hoping you will say, to prove my own point, which I don't know, to say, yeah, it's booming since pandemic, and that would be the answer to our conversation. But you didn't. So.
let me throw another kind of question in there then. How much of this is, how do I phrase this? I was going to use the word generational, but I won't use that word, although I've just said it. But how much of it is, we have new entrants into the hotel industry. They have grown, lived, developed, relied on technology. They can't live without technology. Yeah. Mm-hmm. If you bring somebody into a role and ask them to do something, and that person maybe are in their early to mid-20s, for instance, and you're now saying to them, here's an Excel spreadsheet, and they're not using an app on a phone or on a... Sure. I mean, are we literally at a point, do we think, where maybe over the next 5 to 10 years or so, we will see an increase purely because the people we are trying to attract into the industry are going to demand a greater uptake of technology for these manual tasks?
I think it's a very good point, and I think it's a point that everyone, hoteliers included, needs to consider, and I think lots of them already consider it right now, that obviously people, new generation, as you said, are changing. New generation has some different needs. even my generation, that I'm not a millennial anymore, but now we're talking about Generation Z, so people that was born with technology. But what I wanted to say is that basically when a potential guest now try to make a reservation to an hotel, it's not like before. Now system, even OTAs, booking engine, allows the hoteliers to try to personalize that search, by different aspects, needs that a potential guest wants to have in its experience in an accommodation. So it becomes very complicated also for hotels, to react to that personalization and demand from a potential guest. Young generation people, they're using the phone, everything is immediate, so the booking window is getting shorter and shorter, which means that the reaction of a GM, a director of sales, a revenue manager needs to be faster. Mm-hmm. And faster means that I need to be equipped with something to take a smart decision faster, right?
So what you're saying is it's the guest requirement is also changing, and the process which is driving technology, and then to the point from the staffing and their requirement to want to have technology to do their job is probably driving it. Marco, what's your kind of take on that question?
I would agree with Nick. It depends on how tech savvy is that person. I mean, it can be young or old, but yeah, of course, it makes it a bit easier if you talk to a revenue manager, a person being responsible for revenue management who is interested in modern technologies. Yeah, you do not want to waste the time on spending hours on Excel documents on paper.
Makes sense. Kris, your take?
I'll put it in another perspective. There are two scenarios. If you ask about new generation people working with not as customers, but people working in hotels, working for revenue and pricing, I think it can go two ways. Mm-hmm. One way would be people will just ask on social media, what price should I apply? And then they will get the feedback and just apply it. So a social pricing. But on the other hand, there are people smart enough studying now artificial intelligence, programming, etc. And now with Python modules, it's so easy with all the different forecasting optimization methods that they will probably be able to put a revenue management system program themselves very easily. Just put the modules, use the ChatGPT, and that's it. And I think it could go, because I've seen both. I've seen this, and I've seen just people asking on social media what price to apply because I just don't know. Let me know. So it can go sideways, but think about the Python guys. All the new students. There's so many universities now with curriculum, with programming and data science and data visualization, and there's so many free open source tools like Google Looker Studio, where that can be tricky for well-established traditional companies.
Another question, just throwing that in and taking that, the thought of newness coming into the industry, whether it be technology, whether it be people. What about the competition? I'm building a new hotel. I'm going to be building a new hotel in Munich or in Mallorca or wherever it may be. Am I really going to be developing, building, investing into a new hotel and not be looking at my tech stack to have it geared up to Nick's point, to how guests are now interacting and booking, but also in terms of I want to staff it, I want to be competitive, I also want to make sure I'm getting a good return on my investment. To me, that lends itself to thinking, okay, yeah, I've got a design concept, I've got my fixtures, fittings all set up, but I know that the hotel tech stack is going to be key. Does RMS come into that a bit more now?
It definitely depends on the level of the person you're talking to and how much is this person involved. I mean, if everything is being decided by the owner, who is a construction company, of course, this guy is eventually just looking after interior and design just to let it look exclusive, luxury. and not focusing that much on the right tech stack. But of course, if you really have someone who comes with an experience, who knows what is important, so there's PMS, there is a CRS, of course, it needs to find a way to the booking channel. So what else do we need? Eventually, a revenue management system, maybe upselling tool, combine everything. In that case, absolutely, yes.
Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I agree to Mark. Obviously, I think that besides the fact of opening an hotel, so seeing the the internal operation, I think it's very important nowadays. Define. Even before the opening, a hotel stack, because there are certain solutions that obviously are a must and it needs to be in place even before the hotels open. Like PMS, CRS, booking engine, but even I would say RMS. And especially I think coming to your question, maybe generally speaking, obviously every hoteliers is different, but I think if a person needs to open a new hotel now or tomorrow, let's say within a month or so, I think today there's more options as well in the market, that allows also to have good technology and maybe at good investment, based on the needs of the hotel itself, because each hotels might have different needs, and so. But then the possibility nowadays, because there are so many players, to have something that fit the hotel needs are much larger than before. So I think also the intention of an hotelier to acquire that technology stack that will help those operation is more likely to happen now than maybe before.
Makes sense. And Kris, your take on it?
So I'll just extend your question, maybe, Trevor,
to
Nick and Marco. Traditionally, or before, a revenue management system would need to have the historical data, and they would need to operate for about a year in order to optimize the algorithms. Has that changed now?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, of course, agree with what you're saying. It was always like just getting away the customer from asking too many questions for the next 12 months. So you can really rely on what we are doing for the next 12 months. But a modern revenue management system needs to be above 90% accurate after, let's say, the first 3-4 months. It depends. Give it a bit more, a couple of more weeks if the property is completely new. But even on that, I mean, when someone says, well, we have no historical data because we're completely new property, it's okay. The system might take a bit longer to understand how it works, but it learns with every new booking. But of course, it's also possible to get us a lot of external data, say approach to tourism board, SDR, FERMAS, I mean, pull the data from your competitors, let's say from the market itself, 4-star properties in Vienna over the next, let's say, put the pandemic in and some months or a year before. So pull the data out in a simple Excel document, give it to us, we ingest it at no additional cost, and we create some kind of artificial history where at least the system can start working already on it. Yeah. So nowadays it doesn't take 12 months for a modern system to get up and quickly show results. So if that is not the case after, I would say, 3-4 months, then something is wrong.
I think that nowadays technology, and especially with the advent of machine learning and artificial intelligence, the approach, at least in Libra, changed a little bit. So now, before the data were consumed, let's say we're talking about traditional RMS. The data were the approach of the algorithms, let's say, was more statistical, or was determined more. Sorry, not statistical. It was determined more on the rules. So the user was putting rules or defined different scenarios, and based on certain scenarios, the system was generate some suggestion in terms of forecast and pricing suggestion. Nowadays, with the artificial intelligence or machine learning, what the machine learning does, it will analyze all these data points, data demand, historical demand, competitors' data, etc., online reputation, etc., and it will give an outcome in terms of trying to find these patterns that will help to cover a certain demand that you have in a moment of time, which means that the approach now it's become more statistical rather than based on some rules or scenarios that the user was predetermined.
I'm conscious of your guys' time. We've been talking for quite a while here. Was there? I just wanted to pick up on your extending that question though, Kris. Was there something you were leading to?
No, I was just curious to see how when you ask for a new hotel, how difficult for a new hotel would it be to implement a revenue management system if they need a full year of data because it's based on the historical information. But as Marco and Nick say, it's so totally automated and intelligent. You don't need that ramp up time in order to get the fully working. And the conclusion from that would be that means you can get a system that does a lot of resource savings for you, that does much more analysis than any human can do to optimize, to benefit your revenue. I'm not going to ask you how much average extra revenue your system does, because I know we don't like these questions. But the point is, if this is the biggest return on investment for a hotel, it may be the education, it may be the comfort zones, it may be the generations, but I think that we should start observing the increase in implementation of revenue concepts in the hotel industry. You can't be alone with all the data that is out there surrounded by you. And it's not only hotels, it's any industry. The data is, if you look at e-commerce or different FMCGs, it's all about the data, and it's all about how to process this data. So that's kind of like, I was leading to that, automation, price automation should be a commodity 20 years ago. That's my take.
Yeah. And if I may add to that, keep in mind that when you open a new property, then, there is at least, let's say, 6 months between physically opening it or 6 months already being available on the system, selling it already. Yeah. So make it right and put the revenue management system, even if it needs a couple of months to get aware of this booking behavior, get it in place already in the very early stages. Use it and make it right directly from the beginning. And then it learns already throughout these 6 months, 4 months, whatever it is. And you open the property, and it's not like we can concentrate on this later on in the journey. No, make it right directly. Put it in place. Even the moment you switch on the system, you open the property online, it should be in place already.
That makes sense. Nick, final comment.
Very good point.
Yeah.
No, I agree on that. As we said, nowadays technology allows that. The calibration of the system doesn't need to wait a year to be able to be operative. The approach now is different. Technology allows it. So I suggest every hotel that are opening now to besides the major hotel stack like PMS, they're normally, obviously it's the base of the hotel, to consider system like RMS, because the return of investment, as Kris said, that can bring into the table, it's considerable. So we need to keep educating the market, obviously, trying to break that human resistance or human judgment that sometimes is still there. But it will come. I've seen it in the past, as I said before, and I'm confident that we're going to see lots of new adoption in the near future.
Yeah, and obviously, we stand kind of try and stay detached and give our partners and industry experts a platform to communicate the message. But there is a part of me that is still baffled. I don't get it. I would love to hear from hoteliers that would actually explain to me, who don't have an RMS, who haven't taken a step to tell me why they don't. I don't know whether it is human inertia, human resistance, fear of change, cost rather than looking at it as an investment. It boggles my mind. I know when we did the video, Kris, and you kind of took an example of a hotel certain size, certain level of occupancy, increasing their price by, I think it was like $3 or €3 or something, and it was suddenly adding like 50,000 plus just to the bottom line. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, so if I'm a 100-room hotel and I could have a solution that is identifying my competitor pricing, I know that I could be increasing my price point by €3 and it's not going to damage my competitor position. And I could have a revenue management solution, as you said, Nick, doesn't have to be highly sophisticated, doesn't have to be one of the big solutions, it could be a good lean pricing solution, but with automatic pricing where I can put some rules in there and it could not be dropping it below, but just kind of increase my room by €2 or €3. If these, I'm not doing anything, I'm just investing a little bit of money each month in technology, and every day I just click my button and there's my additional revenue. Sure. I don't get it. There is obviously something I'm missing. And this is why I like having these conversations, because in a sense it reinforces that the logic seems to be there. I just don't quite get the other side of the, and that's probably what you guys share as well.
But I coming back to that, Trevor, I think that the previous step is what's more difficult. Take that leap of faith. Try to do that action of increasing or using and increasing the revenue €1-2 a day and see the results. Once the results are shown, I can tell you that then they're going to start adopting it. But the previous step is the trickiest one.
Guys, I'm very conscious of your time. I think we need to kind of wrap this up. Kris, you look like you were just going to say something there.
No, I'm good.
Okay, guys.
Maybe one thing to add. I think Marco has mentioned that it is not about it's machine that control pricing, but people will always control machines. So that is an important factor to take into that consideration. We're not challenging any people. We're trying to give tools to people to make the work smarter and easier and funnier.
Yeah, good point, guys. Really apprate it. Very
Thank you so much.
We covered quite a lot of ground in there. Went in different directions.
Of episodes.
But really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Trevor. Bye-bye.
Well, I hope that conversation was of interest, and thanks again to Kris, Marco, and Nick for joining us. If you have any thoughts or views on this conversation, please feel free to comment below. If you like the discussion, please don't forget a thumbs up. And if you're interested in more of our videos, here is a link to our Expert Insights playlist, and here is the link to our Coffee Time Chat playlist. And here is the button if you'd like to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. Thanks again for watching.